everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a little bit of a hot minute since I last posted a video because I've been away. I was in Queensland for the past week, and I'm back home now though, so I can definitely keep making videos. But I thought for today's video we'll do something exciting, and this is one of my first reels that I made that got a lot of positive response. So I thought that this would be a cool YouTube video idea. So I've read 55 books so far this year, I think. And I'm going to give you my top racks. I think there's 9 books that I'm going to recommend to you guys from the books that I read this year. So these are almost all new releases, or some of them aren't, but most of them are 2023 releases as well. And there's a mix of different genres in here. So why don't we just get started into the video? Okay, so I thought the best way to do this would just to be in the order of the books that I've read. So one of the first books I read this year, or maybe the first book I probably read this year, was Babel by RF Kuang. So I had literally just moved to New York and I went into the bookstore my first week there, and I saw this, and I knew a lot of people were saying that it was fantasy, and I'm not a fantasy reader, so I was not going to pick it up because it came out in November of 2022. So it taken me 4 months to even consider buying it. But the friend who I was with was no, you're going to like it, just read it. And I fully trusted her, and I read it and I absolutely loved it. I think this is probably one of the best written books I've ever read. It just makes you think so much about so many different things. And it's obviously beautifully written. RF Kuang, this is her 4th book, I think. And Yellowface would be her 5th, because she has the Poppy War trilogy. And this was book number 4. This is a fantasy, but it's a alternative history kind of fantasy. So it still kind of takes place in the real world. So there's not that much world building that needs to be done, which is, I don't like world building. I get really bored, and that's why I usually can't get into fantasy. But this is about a boy who moved from Canton, which is the old name for a province in China or a part of China. And he moves to Oxford and he studies at Oxford. And it's basically, that's the gist. That's all I'm going to say, because I really don't want to give too much away. But there is a fantastical or magic element to this book, but it's done in a way that's quite realistic. This could actually be real and we wouldn't really bat an eyelid, because it just meshes so well with our world. But it talks about friendships, it talks about family, it talks about what it means to be a person of color in a very white world of academia. And this is set quite a while ago. It's set, I don't know when it's set, 1828, right? So 200 years ago. But I feel there's so many notions of race that's still super prevalent today. I recommend this book to anyone that shows any sort of interest in reading lit fic or reading in general. I love this book with my whole heart, and this book made me an RF Kuang stan, and I have nothing bad to say. Love, 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 love. The next book that I read that I absolutely loved is been on everyone's best book of 2023 list. Happy Place by Emily Henry. Emily Henry can do no wrong. I think the only book by her that I didn't love was People We Meet on Vacation. Happy Place was amazing. It was so beautifully written. It was a lot more emotional than her other books. But if you guys haven't read this book yet, or you don't know what it's about this group of friends that go away every year to this house in Maine or Vermont or something. Maine. And there's a group of them. I want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 of them. Yes, 6 of them. And then the last 2, the 2 of the 6, that makes no sense. But 2 of them, Harriet and Wynne, were dating, and they were together for a really long time. They were engaged and they broke up, and now they both have to go on this holiday together and pretend to everyone else that they're still together because they haven't told their friends that they have broken up. So good. So much pining, so much rehashing of what went wrong in the relationship. They both have so much love for each other, but it just didn't work out. And I've tabbed it but you can't really see well because they're white tabs. But there's just so many gorgeous parts of this book. Like, I'm gonna flip through and show you some of my favorite lines because it was just stunning. Okay, let's just read a little bit of Emily Henry out loud. I mean that you have the weirdest laugh of anyone I've ever met, Harriet, he says softly, and it feels like taking a shot of tequila every time I hear it. Like I could get drunk on the sound of you, or hungover when I go too long without you. You see the best in everyone and you make the people you love feel like their flaws are worth appreciating. You love learning, you love sharing what you learn. Like, that's just like one of the beautiful lines in this book. I have so much love for Emily Henry. I'll eat up everything she writes. I recommend this book. Also, this was the exclusive Barnes & Noble edition, and so was this. I really miss being in America because you would get such gorgeous books. And the rest of my books are all Aussie and then kind of Uggo, so we move. The next book I loved, which I've had for a really long time, but I didn't read up until this year, and I want to say this was gifted to me. It was by Allen and Unwin. I don't know what took me so long to read it because I was gifted this in July of 2022 and it took me till May to read this book. This is Honor by Thrity Umrigar, I think. That's how you pronounce the name. Absolutely beautiful book. This is a very intense, very emotional book. So if you are someone that can get really sad from reading a book and that affects you for a long time after you finish the book, maybe don't pick this one up because this one is really hard hitting, and it took me, like, I usually don't get fazed by the books I read, but this one I was fazed by. This is about an Indian American journalist who's moved to the US. So she's born in India, she lived there till she was like maybe 10 or 12 or something. She moves to the US and she comes back because her boss is trying to get her to cover this story, and she really doesn't want to cover the story. She does not want to do this, but her boss is like, you must. And she goes to this little town in India where a Hindu woman called Meena was attacked by her own villagers, like by her own people, for marrying a Muslim man. So if you have no idea why that would happen, it's just because in India, Hindus and Muslims, which are two religions, they don't really get along, and there's no like harmony in the way they live. Most of the time there's a lot of fighting, a lot of war, a lot of religious persecution that Muslims face. So that kind of context is necessary. I would do a teeny bit of research if you're not Indian or you don't know anything about it before reading this book, because it's just a little bit of knowledge is kind of assumed. But it is such a beautifully written book. It made me sob. I read this on the plane and I was crying. I also listened to the audiobook, half of it, and that one's done really well as well. It's just such a beautiful book. I'm trying to get my mum to read it, but she's just hasn't picked it up yet. But I'm going to get her to read it because it's so gorgeous. And I really, really recommend this to everyone. I feel like it's something you need to read, especially if you're someone that lives in a first world country, like if you live in Australia or if you live in the US or if you live in the UK or anywhere else that doesn't really face extreme religious persecution. It is so important to know how lucky we are and how privileged we are to live the lives that we lead, and how harrowing it is for other people. And I feel like reading books about it is such an immersive experience, and it really, like, I try and read these kind of books as much as possible without it affecting my mental health, because I think it's really important. Anyways, book number 4 on this list is Lizzie and Dante by Mary Bly. The fact that nobody talks about this book is criminal. Like, this is the most gorgeous, beautiful romance I've read in a long time. It's like, if you like anything written by Emily Henry, you're gonna love Lizzie and Dante. If you just like made this like an Emily Henry cover, I feel like it would get so many more pickups in a bookstore. Like, this cover just doesn't do it, like, for the book. It's cute, but it's not as cute as it can be. This book is absolutely gorgeous. It's about this woman named Lizzie. She's a bit older, so she's not in her 20s like almost every other romance character is, and she goes on a holiday to Italy with her friends, and there's 3 of them, and I'm pretty sure her friends are like they're like a gay couple. So it's basically she's third wheeling kind of, but not really like that. And she meets this man called Dante, and he has a restaurant in Italy, and they meet on the beach because there's a dog, and the dog comes up to her and she chats to the dog owner, and he's like, hey, like, I'm at this restaurant, why don't we go, like, why don't you come and check it out, you know? And she's like, oh, like, I don't know. And he's like, no, like I'll get you in, just like come to my restaurant for dinner tonight. And she says okay, and she takes her two friends, and the love story blossoms from there. He also has a 12-year-old daughter who's like the best character in the whole book. She's just so cute, she's so funny. But this book is so well done. It is so emotional. It is so beautiful. I was also sobbing. So I read these two around the same time. I was taking a lot of planes. So these two were read on planes. Both of them made me cry on planes. Like, I was like sniffing on them, and I had to put my mask on so like people couldn't really tell. It was a moment. I want to read the physical book because I read it on my Kindle, and I want to go through it physically and sort of annotate the beautiful lines. But I still think about this romance every time I think about every time I see a picture of Italy, I'm like, Lizzie and Dante. It's that good. It lives rent-free in my brain. Please pick up this book. I beg of you. Don't let the cover throw you off. I think the American cover is prettier. I'll pop a picture up, but I love this book with my whole heart. Book number 5, Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson. Gorgeous, gorgeous book. It is about 3 women. They all live in Brooklyn Heights in New York. They're all kind of part of the same family. So you've got Dali and Georgiana, who are sisters. And then they have a brother, and their brother's married a girl called Sasha. So the story just follows the 3 women. It doesn't really talk about the brother from his point of view. This family, so Dali and Georgiana's parents, wealthy. They're like wealthy New Yorkers, like real estate moguls kind of money. Dali gave up all her money to marry her husband. Georgiana's young, and she, you know, uses all of her dad's money, and she's like kind of one of those people that uses the money and kind of shows it off. And she works simply to like work, you know, she just works in a little NGO. She doesn't make a lot, but she thinks that she's better than just like people that just live off the money, you know. She doesn't see herself as like a trust fund baby because she has this job at an NGO. And then Sasha's just like a normal girl who married into this really rich family. It's just their problems, but it's so interesting. I found it so fascinating. I loved the writing. I really couldn't put it down. I love the setting of Brooklyn. Like, I just actually think it's such a lovely place to set a book in, because it's still got this like it's part of New York, massive like charm, but it also has this like suburban family, close-knit community feel, and you can really see it in this book. I was so fascinated by where they lived. I literally looked up Pineapple Street because that's where the book takes place. That's where they live, on the map, and I like tried to see where it was. I really liked this book. Jenny Jackson is also a editor, and she's been an editor for a really long time, so she knows what she's doing when she's writing a book. And if you need any more convincing, this was a shameless book club pick for a couple months ago, and I think they all liked it, so there you go, you're convinced. Two of the books that I want to talk about I don't physically have with me because I gave to a friend, but the first one I want to talk about is Yellowface by RF Kuang. Please read Yellowface. If you are a woman of color, if you like to read, if you are interested in the publishing industry, read Yellowface by RF Kuang. And like, if you're watching this video, you're probably one of the 3 at least. So I think that's all the convincing you need. It is so riveting. It's like, I can't put this book down, but it's so messed up and I can't stop reading it. But I hate the main character, but I can't wait to see what she does next. It's just so beautifully done. I'm an RF Kuang stan. I said this at the beginning of the video. I'm going to say it again. She's amazing. I'm going to read everything she writes now. I have, if you can see, oh, maybe you can't see, but in that corner there, right over there, that's Poppy War on my bedside table because I'm going to read it next. Very excited. And I loved Yellowface so much. If you guys don't know what it's about, maybe I should give you a quick little synopsis. It's about our main character, Junie, who went to Yale, but she's a very mediocre author. Like, she's not great at what she does because her books haven't really been picked up by very many readers. she's acquaintances with another author who has done extremely well for herself. She's got multiple bestsellers. She's super young, and of course she's Asian American. She's Chinese American, I think, and our main character is just Caucasian American. And they go to her house, and Junie, our main character, I can't remember I forgot the other main character's name, Athena. So June and Athena go back to Athena's apartment, and Athena chokes on a little bit of pancake batter. So strange. And she dies. So June is standing there, and she's like, Athena's manuscript is right there. Her unfinished manuscript about Chinese laborers during World War One. It's beautifully written because everything Athena writes is gorgeous. No one knows this exists. I could just take it and go. And that's what she does. She takes it, she goes, she rewrites a little bit of it, polishes it off, and sends it off to publishers. And obviously gets picked up. And she becomes the author of this book about literal, like, historical Chinese fiction as a Caucasian woman. And obviously the publishers are like, this doesn't really look great, so maybe we can change up your look a bit. And she changes her last name from Hayward to Song. That's just one of the things she does, because her middle name was Song. It's just such a good book. I was like sitting like this the whole time, just like couldn't put it down. Highly recommend. The other book that I don't have with me, but I've already recommended so much in my other two videos, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore, is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. One of the best thrillers I've read in such a long time. Please pick it up. I'm not going to harp on about it any more than I already have, but I just love this book so much. I think it's such a well-written thriller, and I was so invested, and I couldn't put it down, and I read it in a day, and it's a chonker. And my friends, I've made a few people read it now. All of them have said they loved it. So I don't know what to tell you. Just pick it up. The last two books I have for you are When in Rome by Sarah Adams. I talked about both of these, so I'm not going to talk about them in too much detail. When in Rome is the perfect, cozy autumn romance. That's all I have to say for this one, really. It's about a pop star that gets stranded in Rome, Kentucky, and she goes and lives with this man who owns a bakery in Rome, Kentucky. And obviously they fall in love. But there's also just like so much more to this book. Like, you see the pressures of like being in the public eye, and you also see a cute little romance on the side. It's so cute. Read it in a day, tabbed it so much. Let's do a little reading from the book, shall we? If I tabbed it means something's good. So let's read it. The first thing I found was gorgeous. Okay, so we have, I still can't believe I'm here with these people. These people who like me enough to poke fun at me, to acknowledge when I'm bad at something, to let me fail and enjoy the hell out of it over and over again. So cute. Little element of found family in this book. I just love it. I love the two main characters. I love this book. I know that this is probably her best book because I just haven't heard rave reviews about anything else she's written, but 10 out of 10 recommend. The last book I have for you today is The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue. Also spoken about this for a long time at length. Also tabbed it. Pick up this book. We've got our main character who's an Irish student who falls in love with her professor, who lives with her roommate, who's gay. So there's this whole like multiple elements of this book, and they all kind of intertwine, and it's told from a like hindsight kind of vibe. So she's 30 and she's telling us a story of when she was 20. Gorgeously written. I just love this book so much. I also think this cover is absolutely stunning. If you want a more in-depth review of this book, it's up on my Instagram. So this one has an in-depth review. Happy Place has an in-depth review, and I want to say, I don't think Babel has an in-depth review, but those two definitely do. And I just love all these books so much. I will not stop recommending them. Please read them, and please let me know if you have read them and you have also enjoyed them, or if you didn't enjoy them. I like to hear some different perspectives as well. that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was hopefully a little quicker than the other two. But yeah, I hope you have a very, very good rest of the day.